Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Tony Bitzionis, and I'm here with my buddies, Mr. Alex Perala, Mr. Dave Barclay. Hello, fellas.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Tony. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. And it's very nice to see our guest today, someone we've been wanting to talk to for a while, Jeff Boehm from Wicket, Chief Operating Officer. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. To get us started, give us a background of yourself, your own history in the industry, and a little brief overview of your role at Wicket.
Happy to, and thanks very much for having me on here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and it'll be a good one. Jeff Boehm, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Wicket. I've been at Wicket for about 3 years. My background is basically all in high-tech startups. I've done sort of a lot of different startups and a lot of different sectors of technology. I'm actually relatively new to the biometric space, so this was a new one for me when I joined the company about 3 years ago. Came on board to help initially with marketing and with product, and have since taken over other areas as COO. Wicket got its birth back in the height of COVID and kind of got born together with the Cleveland Browns as our first customer as a facial ticketing provider, and basically helping people get back into the Cleveland Browns stadium when social distancing and masking and all these things were a thing, and how could people use an alternate way to get back in more safely. And since then, we've really grown using what we call facial authentication. We can get into the differences there with facial recognition, but using facial authentication for sports and live events. And at this point, we have nearly 100 customers across different sports leagues and live events and venues around the world using us for facial ticketing, facial payments, etc.
Jeff, I just wanted to touch on that Cleveland Browns experience, the very first I guess kind of testing ground for this. So the Cleveland Browns, they famously have fans who dress up like dogs to cheer in the dog pound. How much dog makeup can I have on and still use a Wicket touch point?
Yeah, I don't think I don't have a scientific answer to that, Dave. I think it varies. We need a number of touch points, but having been to several games myself out there now and seen fans come in, you don't need to, the signs say, take your hat and glasses off and everything. The reality is you can have large parts of your face covered, provided we have enough points that we can recognize. So I personally have gone through with sunglasses and a hat on, or again, think about when it started with the COVID masks. People were walking in with COVID masks on without any problem.
I wanted to ask about the Cleveland Browns thing as well. Just if you're able to talk a bit more, not about the dog makeup, but about how did it actually start? Like you said, it was sort of founded, it almost sounded like with the Cleveland Browns. I'm sure they're not like part of the company, but are
No.
you able to get into like, was it they were like, we need someone to do this for us, or was the startup just sort of getting going and found a very interested customer quickly? How did it work?
Yeah, there was a sort of a relationship with some of the original founders and people at Wicket who knew people in the Browns organization, and the people who ultimately created Wicket had been doing a slightly different company with some technology, and they heard about the problem that the Browns were having of letting people back into their venue securely, and they thought, maybe we can apply this technology, which included some facial recognition technology, to the problem the Browns have, and kind of approach people at the Browns. And there was an agreement to say, let's give this a try. And so they tried it out at a couple of games during the 2020 Browns season, and it worked really, really well. And the fans loved it, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
All
I
right.
remember reporting on this. I don't remember if it was specifically myself or Alex or who it was, but reading about it on our site, and what, like 2, 3 years ago now, and getting like the angle of how much it expedited fan entry and concessions.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it was during the pandemic. I'm a big sports guy. I hadn't been to a game here in Toronto in a long time, and just fantasizing about how amazing that must feel to those fans to just be getting in quickly. And then, I mean, I went to a Blue Jays game last week. Actually, Dave was at the same game, and just
Mhm.
waiting in line to get a beer or waiting in line to get,
Yeah.
a snack, and just thinking like, I could be back in my seat in a minute if only.
Yeah, Tony, that's the value proposition. That's why people love it, is just that we're removing friction, right? We're using this in order to just let you experience the event. We talk about enabling a sensational event experience, and that's really where we focus our efforts in talking to these venues is in fact, Carl Pierberg, I think he's the CTO at the Atlanta Falcons or Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He talks about fans going basically from subway to seat without taking anything out of their pocket. And they walk into Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I go get a drink, I go get a hot dog, and I go sit down, and I haven't had to take anything out of my pocket because I've used my face for my ticket, I've used my face for my purchase, I've used my face to prove I'm over 21. All these things are frictionless, and I do that, in a fraction of the time it would have taken to interact, to have all those transactions and slow down behind other people. And it's removing that friction and just speeding up the entire process.
On about the enrollment. Well, first of all, I'm curious what the numbers are. I don't know if you have numbers at hand or just a ballpark, no pun intended, but what is the adoption like? Because obviously we're all pretty keen to enroll in something like that here, but just in the broader audience base, what kind of adoption are you seeing?
Yeah, so from a very broad perspective, at this point, more than 1 million people have opted in to use Wicket at some venue or event at this point across sports and live events. We have done, I think we're a little over 8 million biometric interactions at this point, or validating somebody's identity for some form of interaction at these venues. At the more established venues like the Cleveland Browns, about 50% of their season ticket holders have enrolled to use it. At other venues, it's less than that. Actually, in the live event space, we're seeing very high adoption. We do, and when I say live events, one of the big areas for us is conferences, actually. So Salesforce uses us at their Dreamforce conference, which is 50,000 people converge on Moscone Center every year for the annual Salesforce Dreamforce conference. They've been using us now for 3 years to speed up badge pickup, as well as keynote access, as well as back of house security. I think their latest number, something like 70 to 80% of people opt in to use it to just speed up that process there. So it varies. Some venues are just testing it out in limited fashion, with a limited group of people. The Ohio State University tested it out this past year for football games, but they only made it available to a subsection of their student population just to see if it worked. But as they grow, they're really seeing great adoption.
I also was curious what the actual enrollment process is. Can you just do it on a phone, or do you don't have to go in person, it sounds like, to enroll ahead of time?
Yeah, no, typically what happens is, in fact, if you go to the Cleveland Browns website, you will see promotions on their website for their express entry program, as they call it. And when you click on the express entry program, either on your computer, on your phone, you basically you link it to your Ticketmaster account in their case, or if it's a tickets.com facility, that one, or Paciolan, you link it to Paciolan, whatever the ticketing provider is, you link to the ticketing account and you opt in. And that's a really important thing for us, is that people are knowingly opting into this program, and then you take a selfie, and that's it. And you're in and you're good. And then when you show up at the day, what we're doing is matching that face and then calling back to the ticketing provider and saying, does Alex have tickets for the game today? And if the answer is yes, then those tickets are displayed. You choose which tickets you want to use. We tell the ticketing provider these 3 tickets were burned, and it's just like, the manual scanning of the barcode, except that it's 4 times faster than that.
Okay. And then I guess the setting up a payment option where that's supported is just one additional step. It's not built in. It's not like you enroll and then you have to add your credit card and you have to.
If you want it, yeah. In fact, again, the Browns are a good example. You basically enroll in either or both payments or ticketing. You don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. And if I want to enroll in payments, then I upload payment information, and I also take a picture of an ID, and we do ID verification at that point, which is better than human ID verification because you can't fake the barcode, and it's looking it up in the in the state database to verify that you are actually over 21, and keeping that as a flag on this account so that when you show up, it says, yes, I know Dave, and he's over 21, and he has a payment method on file. So go ahead and grab your beer and hot dog and walk back to your seat without having to do anything else.
Right. Okay. I know that this is this is a serious question. It's a weird one. Why isn't everyone enrolling in it? Like the
That's
adoption
just
rates are impressive, but like why I don't it's hard for me to like see a downside, but I'm biased because I write for ID
Yeah,
tech. So
of course.
yeah.
No, I think there's a couple things, Alex. I think one, we're in the middle of that hockey stick of adoption. And when you look at comparable technologies, the today I can't imagine going to a sports venue and pulling out a paper ticket, right, to use that.
Mhm.
But that transition from paper tickets to mobile tickets took 10 to 12 years, is what is
Mhm.
sort of what the industry shows, is that's how long it took from it going from a novel idea to everybody doing it. Even face unlock, which I'm sure you all do, and I certainly do on your phone, that's been around for more than a dozen years to get to the point of it being
Right.
70%, 80% adoption. I would say facial ticketing. We didn't invent facial ticketing. Obviously, other people do facial ticketing as well. But I don't think facial ticketing has been around for more than 7 or 8 years at most at this point. And so I think we're in that technology adoption. It just takes time for people to adopt new technology. It takes time for people to change. I think the other thing that we find in venues is the venues that have the longest lines see the best adoption. And you see this different by different types of sports where, like in the NFL, everybody's pre-gaming outside and then, rushing the field right 5 minutes before kickoff. And so they have massive lines. And so we see hundreds of people sign up every single game at the Cleveland Browns because they're looking over and saying, I want to go through that line. I don't want to stand here anymore. And they have literally QR codes out there that people can just scan the QR code, take a selfie, and walk in a heck of a lot faster than walking through the line. But if I'm only going to one game a year and I'm with my buddies and I don't think about it, so I think there's just sort of almost a social inertia that is the biggest inhibitor. There are still, as you know very well, covering this space, there are still, people that are leery of biometrics too,
Mhm.
right? And they're not sure, what are you doing with my picture? How are you using this? And that's where, for us and for our customers, it's very important to be very overt about what are we doing with your data and how are we using it and how is it secure and what are we not doing with it? And so I think there's sort of, again, sort of some cultural things that I think are getting better and just social inertia of people changing.
Yeah.
That's like
Jeff, I like
obviously
that.
when you
Oh, sorry, Tony.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, like, the whole people being skeptical or hesitant is something that we all, like, you see it across the industry. It's inevitable, and of course, like, everybody understands that. But in this specific use case, I feel like the why are we doing this is so the
Mhm.
benefits are so immediately visible. Like, if you're standing in a line for 40 minutes to get in or for 20 minutes to get in, and you're thinking, why are we doing this? And the next line over is either empty or people are just zooming by you,
Yep.
then I think the gears, even in my brain, would turn pretty quickly. And I'd be like, oh, that's why we're doing this, right? So that I can get inside quicker and concessions can move faster and it just benefits everybody.
Yep. But yet, when I drive, I'm up in the Boston area and I drive, through the turnpike, I still see people sitting in line to go pay manually as opposed to having a fast pass. Why?
Yeah.
Why? At this day and
Yeah.
age, after how long this technology has been here, how does not everybody have a fast pass at this point? And it's just a reality of technology adoption.
Yeah. And sorry, Dave, I cut you.
oh, that's right. No, not at all. Yeah, Jeff. That was an interesting. Take a like kind of the difference between like NFL and other sports, like the culture of tailgating. Is any sport more or less like difficult to maintain security, like tennis versus MLS versus hockey?
Well, so I guess from a security perspective, I guess I view that a little bit differently because there's sort of two different ways you can look at that. One is we're not, our technology is not being used to keep fans out, right? Our technology is not being used to police and say this fan should not be allowed back in here or whatever. So we're not focused on that, right? We're focused on using our technology to help people in. That all being said, there are also teams and leagues, the NFL most famously, that use us for credentialing, which is securing the sensitive areas of a facility. So if I want to get onto the field or into the locker room or into the press box at any NFL game anywhere in the country, I'm using my face to do that. And that is improving the security of those again, sensitive areas and ensuring that, and again, the same thing happens in live events where if I have a back of house or a VIP area at a conference, I want to make sure only the right people are getting in there. And I don't want to rely on somebody, I have a million of these badges around, but I don't want to rely on somebody handing my pass off to somebody else or risk having somebody passing my pass off to somebody else and faking their way in. And so that definitely improves security, or as the NFL has talked about it, it's all about accountability for them and just knowing who's on the field at any given time. So that side of it, we're focused on. The sort of fan security has not been as much of a focus of us per se.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of goes back to something you said earlier, because I know there are companies, I can't think of their names at the moment, but they're companies that are selling facial recognition security to like soccer stadiums to deal with
Sure.
like the hooliganism issue. That's not what you guys are doing. You're not like setting up cameras to monitor people. You said at the beginning, you're like, this is authentication. So I guess that's a distinction. How often do you have to draw that distinction when you're talking to like a potential partner? Is there often like confusion about what you're offering if you're talking to like a new venue or whatever?
I think that confusion comes up in two different places, Alex. I think there is sometimes confusion with the venues or the partners that we're talking to, and just clarifying how our technology is used, and we're very intentional about it being. We talk about it being overt, not covert. We talk about it being opt-in. We talk about, sort of the data security, and we're speeding up ingress rather than blocking people. And there are venues that are looking for the other use case, a more, again, surveillance style use case. And we've been very careful to sort of stay in our swim lane of facial authentication. I think that also helps then with how the venues communicate it to the fans and assuage their concerns that, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. And we've been at some venues where I literally was at one of our venues last year, and there were some protesters there protesting against, what they viewed as sort of a surveillance use case. And, we were able to diffuse it pretty quickly that there's no surveillance going on here. The only people that are having their pictures taken are the people that intentionally walk up to the lane with the iPad and a camera and look at it and have their picture taken. That, if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. And I think, that has helped us sort of overcome some of that social anxiety still about how this technology is being used.
Yeah. On that note, how how much of a problem is it for you when who's that guy, that Madison Square Gardens guy, and everybody hates him and he started like scanning his enemies' faces at the venues?
Dolan?
Yeah. Is that like is
Like the
that a
owner of the
problem for
Knicks.
That that
Wicket?
that
Thanks,
that
Dolan.
that comes up a lot, Alex. Yeah, and again, honestly, to be to be truthful, it mostly comes up in conversations like this or conversations with people who are just kind of exploring, tell me about what biometric technology does or how is it being used. When we're talking to the venues, by the time we're in serious conversations with the venues, they know, okay, we're talking about facial ticketing or we're talking about facial payments. And, if anything, it's helping them, it's equipping them with the language to offset concerns they may get from people around them about what they're doing. So, when the Tampa Bay Bucks rolled this out for facial ticketing this year, I don't know if this happened, but I mean, they did a lot of press in the local Tampa area, and it's quite possible that they would get questions from the press about, oh, so is this like Madison Square Garden? So it's also equipping our customers to be able to distinguish, again, this facial authentication versus surveillance. At the core, it's still facial recognition technology. It's more about the process and the implementation of it that I think makes it a better, more fan-friendly use case of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Jeff, this might be the key question of the entire podcast. Are you
Okay.
sports fans at Wicket?
Yes, there are a lot of sports fans at Wicket. Yes, we are all We are all, well, I have blur on, so you're not going to see it. I personally am a soccer fan, so I follow a lot of the English Premier League, and I'm looking forward to announcements coming soon about our work in Europe. But yeah, we are all big sports fans. I live in the Boston area, so I'm certainly excited about the work that we're doing with the Craft Group, and looking forward to other teams locally using it. But yes, we are all big sports fans. I grew up in Michigan, so I was very excited about the result last night, and seeing the Maize and Blue get national championship. So yes.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Are you a
Tony,
Crystal
Tony,
Palace fan?
I
I'm sorry,
cringed
what?
when you said I cringed when you said English Premier League because I am a fan as well, and I'm a Crystal Palace fan. So I think I'm like the only Crystal Palace fan in the city of Toronto, or one of like seven. And whenever the conversation goes that way, it always ends up requiring a bunch of explanation, which I'm not going to do right now. So that was the explanation for that look on my face.
No, that's all good. I am a Chelsea fan, which is a very polarizing team to admit to
Yeah.
being a fan of to people. So yes.
I
Yeah.
only follow tennis, so I avoid all of this flack.
Well, we had a very good deployment for our third year in a row, I think, as you've covered and know, down at the Australian Open. So
Yeah,
that's been a really successful proving ground for us, and has opened up other opportunities in Australia and conversations with other major tournaments around the world based on the success that they've had at the tennis there. So yeah.
that's great. If you ever need live coverage of those tennis deployments,
I know a guy. All right, good to know. All right.
but yeah, I mean, sports is obviously a key focus, but you mentioned the Salesforce thing earlier. So I am curious, like what it does seem like this system could be deployed at like a pretty wide range of venues. So what is the strategy or logic behind who you're partnering with? Like, are you trying to move into non-sports stuff more, or what's the thinking going forward?
So a couple of things there, and this is where a little bit of my background in tech comes into play, where the technology is very broadly applicable at the end of the day. But I think part of building a successful tech company is focus. And we're not trying to solve all problems for all people. And so we really are focusing on this sports and live events area. Conferences have a lot of similarities in terms of big queues to get in. The other thing that I think really sets Wicket apart in sports and now in these conferences also is that we have, top tier facial recognition algorithms, but very importantly, we are fully integrated into the ecosystems of those environments. And we're not just having you show up and say, this is Alex, and that's it. We're having you show up and say, this is Alex, and he has 4 tickets, or this is Alex, and he has, he's already connected. He already has a wallet, a card on file, and a payment method here, or he has a credential here. So we've built integrations with all the point of sale systems and the ticketing companies and the event management platforms that companies like Salesforce and NVIDIA and Autodesk and all of them use at their conferences. And so rather than just rushing off to additional areas, we're looking where those integrations and our ability to easily integrate our tech with ecosystem companies like that provides a unique advantage for us and for our customers there.
All right, cool. That makes sense. And when you are pursuing new partners, are there any like common institutional barriers that you find like keep coming? Have you learned over time how to navigate them? I'm thinking of stuff like unions or whatever who are like, you can't replace the work that's being done here or something like that. But really anything, like I'm curious what challenges you encounter, because any new technology is going to have
Sure.
like a bit of friction with the old institutions.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge for us, or the biggest hurdle we have to cross with pretty much any new partner, is their legal team. And we are very overt in our own security posture, and we have a whole trust center on our website with tons of documentation, and we've done all the certifications and everything. And Verizon resells us as part of a package that they take to market. The Verizon legal team is not, they're no jokes. They take this stuff seriously, and they put us through the ringer. Same thing with Salesforce or the NFL. These are some of the largest organizations and most respected organizations in the world, and their legal teams put us through the ringer. But given the fact that we've been through that at this point, we are confident in our ability to assuage those concerns, but every new legal team wants to feel like they've got their own view on this, and they want to take their time. I think beyond that, I mean, it's getting people to have confidence that if they build it, people will come, right? And that, are our fans different? Are our users different? Or will they really adopt it in the same way that, again, the Browns fans or the Bucks fans or the LAFC fans or the Salesforce conference users or whomever, the way that they have? And so typically what that means for us is they want to test it out with a smaller group and sort of see what that adoption looks like before really, taking a big bite of the apple.
Got it. I know we're coming pretty close to the end of the scheduled time, but I did want to ask, you said you're kind of more or less new to the biometrics industry. Like you joined Wicket a few years ago, but before that, you weren't really involved. It's kind of a weird industry. I'm curious, like just your general thoughts on it and why it often feels like it's in kind of a different space than like tech in general. Or if you don't agree with that. I'm just curious as an outsider what you think.
Yeah, I actually, given the number of different industries that I've been in software, I was in 3D printing right before this. I think every industry feels a little bit different when you're in it. But at the end of the day, I think the things that help companies in this industry or any industry succeed is where you focus on what you're enabling and what the outcomes are versus just the tech. And I think every industry has its tendency at times to be too focused on internal speeds and feeds and benchmarks and comparing algorithms, where outside of the little, shared oxygen that we all have in this space, nobody cares about most of those speeds and feeds. What they care about is what's the experience that you're enabling. And if I can get to my plane faster, I'm going to do TSA pre-check with touchless, which is the newest one, which is great. I don't have to, it's just, I'm going to do that. And if that's facial recognition, okay, I just know I'm getting to my plane faster. And so I think the more that we as an industry or any other sort of technology industry like this can talk about those outcomes and what you're enabling for people, the more successful we'll be. And that's where, again, I appreciate, not trying to blow smoke here, but I appreciate reading about real world examples and the outcomes that people are getting through ID Tech, as opposed to just, what are the speeds and feeds and technology innards of this.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And that is, we have to cover everything. We have to cover the benchmarks, but we're also constantly trying to translate this into into language people can understand. Yeah, and what it means in real life. So,
and I think that's really important.
As Canadian-based sports fans, you guys entered the Canadian market with the Flames earlier this year. So my fingers are crossed for people who are listening that the day will come soon where I can get in and out of my seat and to my beers as fast as possible.
We may be talking to an organization in your city right now, but I don't know, but we may be.
What a tease, what a scoop.
All right. Well, for everyone's sake, I'm gonna shut the conversation down there. But Jeff, it's been a pleasure, and to your credit, just for our listeners, before the call, Jeff was like, "Ask me anything. I'm happy to talk about anything. I'm an open book," and that's our favorite kind of guest. So, kudos and thanks for a great chat.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.